Hello, and today we will be playing Lyre. We're about to start chapter 10 now. Winter's harsh retribution on summer grows more relentless with each passing day. Flakes of snow gently fall down from the sky above, landing on Lyre's dark brown fur. The ground beneath his paws is frigid, but after being outside all morning, he's gotten used to it. Most of the people in these parts are used to it. Even the plants are barely affected by the frozen, sour flurry. He weakly kicks at a small pile of snow, watching it toss up into the air before landing on the ground ahead of him. Taking these walks helps him think, and being out here is better than being in the castle. For the past few days, he's been trying to do everything that he can to help Winter. He hasn't been very successful though. The only contact that he's been able to make with him is through a couple small letters. He's not allowed to write anything important on him. Nothing helpful, at least. So they usually just end up being notes with words of encouragement or promises. It wouldn't matter anyway, given the fact Winter can't send anything back. They'll stop sending them after a while anyway. The fact they need to be read by others is a breach of his privacy he'd rather not go through. As he slowly walks down the path, his eyes drift in the direction of the small pond underneath the dragon apricot tree. It was only a few weeks ago when he and Winter were sitting under that tree. The memory of that day always brings a smile to his face. He'd never been able to be so open with someone like that before, without it blowing up in his face at least. He was scared, but no matter how nervous he was, he felt comfortable. It was such a happy moment. Now it leaves a bittersweet taste in his mouth. Lyle's paws brush against the stiff grass underneath the snow as he walks towards the pond. The idea of showing this to Winter fills him with a little bit of joy. Winter and Lyre is nothing like Winter and Erin from what he's heard. In Erin, it rarely snows, and if it does, most of the plants, such as flowers and things like that, need to be kept warm or they'll die. But here in Lyre, all the plants have adapted to the climate. Sure, they lose a bit of their color and become stiff, but other than that, they usually fine. It really creates a beautiful winter. Lyle stops about the tree stump at the edge of the pond and sits down, moving his cape so that he doesn't tug on it while sitting. His tail brushes against the snow as it sends a chill throughout his body, but it's a chill that feels nice. His trousers are thick enough that his rear is immediately sought by the cold surface of the stump. Even then, his fur does an excellent job at keeping him from being too cold. Once he's relaxed, he leans forward, with his paws clasped together in his lap, looking down at the water's frozen surface. He reminisces of that bittersweet memory once more. Think about when Winter picked pieces off of the rest of his apricot and tossed them into the pond. Small fish would swim up and swim the pieces, pushing them around the water's surface, creating ripples across the whole pond. Winter was being very quiet. Lyle had already finished all of his food, so he sat there watching Winter, wondering if the prior conversation really went as well as he thought it did. Now the small body of water is completely frozen. Lyle picks up one of the apricots and examines it. It's rock solid and covered in frost. He takes off one of his gloves and holds the pink fruit in his paw. The cold skin brushes up against his paw pads and sends a shiver up his arm. He then looks down at the palm of his paw and stares at it with a melancholy look. The pads on his paw are dark and rough, with large claws coming out from the tips of his fingers. The rest is covered in fur. Compared to the soft skin and long, articulate fingers of Winter's hand, they are much different. He chuckles to himself. No matter what he thinks about, his thoughts always lead back to Winter. and can't be helped. Whether he's thinking about how awful their situation is or how much he cares for them, Winter's always on his mind. He looks back down at his paw again, a human and a wolf. Even in Aaron, something like that must be rare. Being Lyre, Lyre can't think of any time he's heard of something like that happening. Similar things have happened before, but usually there's at least something akin between the two partners. Lyre loves him very much, but even he has to admit there's a bit of a gap between the two of them biologically. Before he can continue to delve deeper into his thoughts, his ears perk up as he hears boots crunching through the snow. He lifts his head and turns in the direction of the noise. Elizabeth approaches from the path just outside the entrance into the castle. She stares at him for a moment before continuing toward the pond. Her footwear crunches through the snow with a deep, gritty noise. She's in her usual robes and doesn't look too cold, aside from the pale skin on her face turning red at the nose and cheeks. The only thing different about her is a pair of wool mittens. It's surprising that she even has the time to come out here. The investigation is still going on and she rarely gets a moment to get away from it all. Lyre, on the other hand, isn't allowed near the investigation as much as he'd like. The only reason he's even able to be part of it is because he's a high-ranking individual and technically a witness. Not only that, but despite the restrictions Aegis has put on him, Lyre's power over the Warrior Guard is still as strong as ever. When it comes to anything other than Winter, of course. So despite Aegis and his risks, Lyre needs to be there to lead the Warrior Guard in the inspection. Lyre steps off on a small path and approaches the pond. I thought you might be out here. Her voice travels across the pond like a hawk taking a sharp dive. Were you looking for me? Even when walking through a small layer of snow, her figure is as straight and balanced as it always is. Once he gets closer, Lyre can't help but chuckle in his head at the reality that only when he's sitting down or are they at eye level. No, just assume I will come across you. It's not often that I come out here to think, especially with the weather, but I do stroll through here sometimes. He looks down at the stump he's sitting on and smirks. But I see my thinking spot has already been taken. Lyre blushes slightly and jumps up from the seat. By all means here, it was only a joke. No, I insist. You've been working hard lately. You should be resting. Now here in the cold. She stands there for a moment, looking up at him with a smile that spoke plenty of words before sitting down. Sometimes you are too kind. Well, as long as nobody mistakes it for weakness. Of course. Lyre walks over to the tree and stands by the trunk, leaning his back against the cold surface. Lyre sits there quietly for only a moment, most likely gathering her thoughts before speaking again. Lyre? Yes. I know it's not like we haven't seen each other in a while, but I just now realize I've never properly asked. How have you been taking all this? He scuffs his paw at the ground, looking down and avoiding her eye contact. I've been taking it as well as I can, I suppose. He brings back his paw and kicks one of the fruit, watching it skate across the surface of the pond before slowly coming to a stop near the bank on the other side. I know Rainer was like family to you, and I can certainly confirm without a doubt that he adored you. For some reason, Lyre can't help but think about the depressing funeral that was held only a couple of days after Rainer's murder. It was a private gathering that only those closest to him were allowed to attend. The burial was held at twilight in the gardens where Alina was also laid to rest. It was a sad day, not a single person spoke. Instead, everyone just stood there quietly mourning. Angel said a few words, but other than that, he just silently sat in front of the grave, gently placing small flowers around both headstones. Lyre wanted to stay, but when everyone started to depart and Idris made no move to get up, Lyre knew he Lyre knew that he too should probably go. And once now this happened, I know, we all do. This whole tragedy might just plunge his kingdom into war. They all shivers at the idea of war breaking out. I'm sure that another solution will present itself. She continues to look at the ground while he's shrouded in gloom. Both of them sit there in silence for some time before she speaks up. I spoke with Lord Ritter the other day. I couldn't remember if I had told you or not. They all straightens up after hearing this. No, you didn't. How is he doing? Not as bad as one would think, but still, he's not doing too great. But then Leo's chest feels like it twists into a knot. He leans against the tree, sliding down the trunk and stumping against it, sitting himself onto the cold snow beneath him. Nothing comes to mind that he could say, his thoughts completely clouded. Elizabeth's concerned voice breaks him out of his daze. Are you okay? I'm sorry if that bothered you. Even in the midst of his swirling thoughts, Leo musters up the energy to give a polite response. No, it's fine. You are only answering my hasty questions. She relaxes a bit and places her hands on her lap. I know you have a strong devotion to him, but the rumors don't do it justice. They're a bit of an understatement, actually. Oh yeah, the rumors. Aye. Just a bunch of fools who talk about it as if there's nothing better to do. Everyone talks about it, as you probably know. I know firsthand. And most people would just mind their own damn business. Trust me, so do I. It would make everything a lot easier. I just want you to know that I'm not judging you. I know. I was, however, shocked with that display during the party. Lau slumps more into the tree, his face being surrounded by the fluff around his neck. Yeah, don't get the wrong idea. It's not in the way you think. And the initial shock, I was actually quite interested. Really? Yes, the amount of courage it must have taken for all of that. Trust me, it wasn't as courageous as you think. Still, it was impressive, especially Richard's part in it. The way he told off all of those pompous half-wits from the higher houses. God, the looks on their faces were priceless. They really hated that. Yeah, it was great. The interesting part about it was Richard's reaction. No one person in his position would dare to do something like that. Compared to that day, he stumbled to the chambers with his thoughts scattered and manners thrown out the window. I say it was an improvement, but still, he's so different from every other ambassador I come across. Like that one from Dries. He's strange, but there's no doubt he was politically trained. Unlike Raynor, who... Are you saying Raynor isn't good at his job? No, not at all. I like that fact that he's so different from the others. Besides, I haven't known him long enough to be able to make such a judgment. Now looks down, embarrassed at his worst attempt at defending Richter. Sorry, I misunderstood. He hasn't had a chance to do much yet, but everything that he's done so far has been done exceptionally. Mostly dealing with the crown's money, making sure Raynor didn't run the kingdom dry with another one of his extravagant parties. Soren had to. Sits down with a smile on her face, but quickly fades once the levity of the conversation dissipates. I've gotten off track, though. I know that you're a good man. When you were a young lad, you always strove to do what's right, even if it wasn't in your best interest. But, she lets out a sigh. But sometimes I think you're in over your head. There he is. Now lets out a short exhale through his nose, causing a puff of cold breath to appear in front of him. I want to trust you on this. Really, I do. But there's not much for me to go off of other than your word. Liao seems to sink further into his armor. It's as if he'll disappear into himself at any given moment. Do you have any evidence that can help clear his name? Anything to bring to the trial? Of course, I don't think it will be enough. Anything you haven't told us yet that could be useful? Everything I know has been laid out for all to hear, along with all of the evidence everyone's been looking at for the past week. It's almost as if they're trying to make it seem like they haven't already made their decision. She places her hands on her lap, looking down at them with a thoughtful face. I know you have these feelings for him, and I'm happy for you, but you're risking a lot right now, more than you could possibly imagine. She brushes the snow off her legs and stands up, looking him in the eye. She looks up. He looks up at her and sits up straight, realizing she's leaving. You're going to find yourself at a crossroads soon. We all are. The question is, will you risk it all or will you abandon everything? Leo clumsily stands up with a confused look on his face. What? It's just something to think about. Something I've been thinking about for a long time. Not the woman's note to end on, but I assure you, giving it some thought will prove useful. She brings her hands behind her back and gives a nod. It's about time I went back inside the warm walls of the castle. Of course. Listen now. His ears perk up as he continues. I put my trust in you, but whatever happens, I want you to know. I just want what's best for this kingdom. Now, I'm sorry for anything that happens. Dell's attempt at coming up with any response to what she said slowly dissipates as he walks away towards the entrance to the courtyard. One of the castle guards comes out the door, safely ushering her into the hall. Dell looks up into the air, snowflakes falling down gracefully like stars against a foggy blue sky. What he said doesn't feel so reassuring, though. If anything, it just makes the rest of this week feel like it's going by faster. Everything seems to be slowly creeping up on them with every passing day. This feeling of dread will be enough to make anyone crumble. That on top of the constant thought of Victor sitting alone in that cell, slowly losing all hope. Liao looks down at his paw, the glove still firmly grasped in it. The little claws at each finger tip jingle and clank into each other as he grips it tighter. I swear, ow. He releases his grip, sliding the glove back onto his paw. I'll get you out of there, no matter what. I'll prove it to them. He says this while looking at the ground as if he was talking in the direction of Ritter down in their cell. There's one thing that he could do, though. But he needs to go to the court chambers and look over the evidence. A certain someone might be able to help him identify something. This might be his only chance to get information that nobody else could. He quickly stands up and begins to walk away from the... He's done enough thinking. It's time to take action. With each twist and turn through the castle halls, Liao's heart beats faster, his body filled with anxiousness and hope. Contrary to his large size, his paws are silent and quick as he swiftly makes his way down the corridor. The court chambers are just up ahead. The room is heavily guarded along with Butcher's quarters and Raynor's bedchambers. Nobody except for people participating in this investigation have been allowed in Butcher's room since the solstice. They did a complete search of the room, finding nothing but expensive clothes and a cluttered desk full of notes and documents, along with a few embarrassing drawings Liao had made that he kept. Thankfully, the guards won't stop him. He may not be able to visit with Ritter, but they can't bar him off from this. As he approaches the door, there's a few castle guards standing outside. They stand up straight and look at him. Liao walks up to the door and takes out his keys, unlocking it with a large clanking sound. He opens the door and leans in through the threshold. It's empty. The candles on the chandelier above the table are lit, but the curtains are drawn and the room is lifeless. The room shouldn't be this empty. He pauses for a moment, wondering if something is wrong, but then walks into the room with caution, closing the door behind him. The table went from being a place for guests to eat to being cluttered with papers, documents, and all sorts of evidence important to the investigation. The chairs are pushed out and faced in all kinds of directions. Windows closed from that night are laying flat on the table, completely spread out, appearing to have been examined multiple times. The dry blood on the suit seems a coat was up Liao's body, but he looks away from it for now. That's not what he came here for. Along with the suit are pieces of the whip drapes which have been collected and laid out next to it. Letters, documents, more letters. The table would look like an absolute mess to anyone who didn't know their way around it. Lyre spots the thing he's looking for, but not before his eyes glance across some of the sketches he made. Liz knew of Lyre's hobby and asked him to sketch out the scene before they removed any of the evidence. It was early in the morning and none of them had slept, so his drawings didn't come out that great. On top of the fact that he wasn't enjoying a single moment of it, the things he was asked to sketch out that night were uncomfortable, but it had to be done and it helped so. Thankfully, whoever was looking at them last decided to cover them up with the sketch of the scene for the entrance. Not pleasant, but much less detailed. A shocking sight he'd rather not remember. With a nasty twist forming in his stomach, he sets the sketches back on the table and looks down at the murder weapon. It's a unique yet simple Wandale dagger with a long blade. It's nothing too classy, but certainly not cheap. A pretty thing for a peasant to spend their life savings on, but nothing a noble would use. The gore is made from gold, but it feels very light. The dagger doesn't look like it's been used much either. It has a clean finish aside from the blood that's been left on it. There's no signs of scratches or dents, though. Everything about it seems flawless. The fact that there's no mark signifying the marker is annoying. However, there's one thing that's odd about this dagger that's always bothered y'all. These blades were typically used along with a thrusting sword such as a rapier or an ester. A secondary weapon used to gain edge on your opponent. Your typical dagger would be much better for assassinating someone. This dagger would still get the job done, though. The blade is sharp enough to cut a hair straight down the center, and the tip is very pointed. Just looking at it is enough to make Lyre nervous, but holding it sends an enormous chill up his back and around his shoulders. The castle blacksmith has already had a look at it. He says a standard northern dagger that you could get from any smith in Erin or Lyre. Lyre doesn't trust his judgment, though. The man used to be very involved in smithing and knew a lot about the different types of blades and forges they came from. But he hasn't been in that field lately. Now he just forges weapons and armor specifically for the castle guard along with the royal guard. Wise beyond his years, but rusty in his knowledge. Now knows of one man who might know the origin of this blade. Eden. If Eden can figure out where the blade might have come from and bring it before the court, it could turn the tides of the trial entirely. Eden can confirm that Richter didn't buy a single weapon when he was in his forge. It's not solid proof, but something. Now takes the blade and gently puts it into a small satchel. Let's hope you can figure this out, Eden. As he makes his way to the door, it opens wide fast, the door clunking into the wall behind him. Coincidentally, Bjorn stands in the doorway, his large body taking out most of the fighting. He has an annoyed grimace plastered on his muzzle. Reed. He looks around the room with a confused look on his face. Who are you just talking to? Now tucks the satchel more behind his back and underneath his cape as he backs up a bit. Nobody. I was just thinking out loud. Bjorn, knowing about what Lyre plans to do, would certainly cause some trouble, so he'd rather not have to deal with. How to explain to someone like Adris that he wants to take the murder weapon is as undesirable as a confrontation with the killer himself. What? Were you looking over evidence or something? Bjorn glances at the table with disinterest. Yeah, just looking. Trying to piece everything together. All by yourself. The old bear stands up straight, his towering figure rising up above Lyre's by a good stance. Yes, is there something wrong with that? The tone of annoyance in Lyre's voice slips out on the last few words. You're allowed to do that? Of course I am. Don't forget, as captain of the Royal Guard, I still have partial supervision of this investigation and trial. Bjorn grunts and lets out a chuckle, his frown still sitting upon his lips. It doesn't matter. I was just leaving. Lyre goes to step around him, but he speaks up. You shouldn't have it. Lyre stops in his tracks, his heartbeat rising slightly. What? You shouldn't have supervision over this. Everyone knows it. Everyone's thinking about it. Even you should understand that it's wrong. Lyre's hot face is nothing compared to the sight of his hackles rising. That's not for you to decide. It's not wrong in the slightest. Someone has to support the innocent man locked in that cell. Lyre continues to walk past him and grabs the doorknob. I won't stand for this disrespect, Sir Bjorn. I'm leaving. Lyre doesn't wait for Bjorn to retort as the door closes behind him. The guards outside the door are as still as statues, and Lyre walks into the opposite direction down the stairs. Bjorn's constant disrespect of Lyre is annoying, but as long as he does what he's told and doesn't get in his way, he honestly couldn't care less. It's weird being a young captain to an old beast like that, but that's just the way things are. Age isn't a factor. Age isn't a large factor in the capabilities you lead. Maybe he'll realize that someday. Lyre steps out to the bottom of the stairs and reaches the door to the passage which leads to the village. He looks around before opening the door. From what he can tell, nobody was following him. He takes out his keys, unlocking the door swiftly and swinging it open. Cold air blows out from the doorway into his face. He steps down the spiral staircase, closes the door behind him, unlocking it. The stairs are wet with cold water. It makes him wish he had a pair of those shoes Victor had to wear. They probably wouldn't fit on his paws, though. Descending down the stairs, he reaches the bottom and begins to carefully make his way through the tunnel. Each step he takes becomes colder and colder. Some of the puddles beneath him reacted to the movement, glowing bright blue like they always do. Once he reaches a trapdoor at the end, he unlocks it and pushes it up as far as his arms let him. He lifts himself up the stairs and tries to let his eyes adjust to the light. It's snowing outright now, but each snowflake quickly melts before it can touch the ground. Other than a thin layer of snow here and there, the vitality fire lanterns seem to be doing their job as always. He steps out of the small alley and into the village square. It's not as busy as it usually is, but people are still going about their day. For an obvious reason, everything feels more depressing now. It may just be his mood, though. There's a few people walking around and shopping for stuff. A couple of kids are playing by the fountain, one of them flipping a few coins into the water. John's outside the bakery adding logs to the stove. Always a good, hard-working lad. The logs look like small branches when he grabs them. Val's ears perk up at the familiar sound of metal striking an anvil from within Eden's gorge. Eden must have been working since dawn because, from the sound of it, every contraption in front of his forge is running. Val secures the satchel at his side and lifts the tarp in the doorway, his ears bursting at it as he ducks through the arch. The entire force is suffocated in dry, hot air. Eden is bent over, poking at the inside of the furnace, his body shining with sweat. His apron is completely dirty and all sorts of tools are thrown about the ground. He stands up and turns around, jumping a bit at the sight of Lyre. Yo. Quiet as always, I see. Lyre rubs the back of his head while looking down at the ground. I'm not trying to be. Yeah, sure. Holler my name next time. He sits down at a fire poker and turns back around, wiping his paws with a rag. How have you been? A mess. Yeah, I bet. A long pause floats through the air, but before Lyre can get To the point Eden speaks up again. Such an awful thing to happen. I can only imagine how it's been affecting you. As much as a shock as it was, life still goes on for us folk outside the castle, though I can't help but feel a little depressed lately. He bites his lip while looking at his anvil. The top of it scratched and busted all over. I also heard about who they said did it, the human fella that you've been following around. What was his name again? Richter. Trust me, he didn't do it. He didn't sweat his shoulders. I hope he didn't. He seems nice. But enough about that. What can I do for you? Don't tell me Winter's door again. You can't have done that much training. No, it's not that. I want to ask you a few questions. About what? Lyre pulls the satchel around to his front and lifts the flap, revealing the handle of the blade. He carefully pulls it out and places it on top of the anvil. I need you to tell me everything you can about this blade. Eden cocks her eyebrow at the dagger and rubs his chin. I thought you didn't like fancy daggers, big guy. What exactly did you want to know about it? Where's it from? What's it made of? Do you recognize the maker? Anything that could help me clear Richter's name? Eden picks up the knife and gently examines it. It's just a blade there. It is. A slight grimace appears on his face. Turning it around in his paws, he studies it with extra care, trying to look at every detail. What about that blacksmith? What about that castle blacksmith? Didn't he have anything to say about this? Yeah, but I don't even know why they consulted him in the first place. He only works on special orders and he's been out of the trade for decades. Now wings his paws, looking at Eden with concern. On this matter, I trust your judgment more than anyone's. Eden holds the dagger closer to the light from the furnace and runs a claw across the guard. He then rubs one of his paw pads along the pommel. What did the old man say? Said it was a regular blade. Could be purchased from any smith in Lyre or Lyre. He's wrong. It's a very easy mistake to make, though. Lyre leans forward, places his paws on the anvil, resting his weight on it. I knew it. To anyone else, this would look like a simple Wandel dagger, Webber's best friend. He points to the sharp tip and holds it in a extended grip. That's the case with this one. It's not that simple of a blade. Although thrusting swords became a widely used weapon in northern Erin, they were created in Lyre. Both kingdoms had many knights and soldiers trained in the art of dueling with such blades. The thing is, ever since trade between the three kingdoms was expertly established, several ideas. He places the blade back onto the anvil. The fire of the forge casts a warm glow upon the blade. Ideas were shared and techniques learned. Eventually, all sorts of weapons were being forged all around Tigran. Weapons considered to be foreign were rare and sought after in their homelands. And a dagger like this was definitely forged in trees. He nudges the blade across the anvil in Lyre's direction as he says this. Really? I've seen ones like it before on the trips. I've seen ones like it before on the few trips I've taken to trees. The wavy blade is something you could go off of, but here's the main reason. He points to the guard and pommel. This isn't gold. It's not? That there is pure Erinamite. It's a somewhat rare metal that's similar to gold in quality. Almost as rare as Fecrite, it's found primarily in the south. Weighs less and is stronger. He picks it up and holds it out to Lyre. This blade's from trees. Kadad's. Sorry, what? Nothing. Lyre takes the blade from him and gently places it back in his satchel. Thank you for your help, Eden. There's no problem at all. I won't even charge you for my time. Very funny. I'll be seeing you, hopefully. Lyre turns to leave, but Eden stops him. Hey, Lyre, yes? I, heard other things about that Richter fella. Lyre turns around and leans against the wall behind him. Eden, I heard that you were at it again. That's my business. I know, just it seems like it's happening all over again. Everyone's forming mean opinions about it. Lyre looks up at the ceiling and sighs. Listen to me for a moment, will ya? I know that they made it difficult for us to be together. I know that they spread horrible rumors which were quickly silenced and not forgotten, but Lyre starts to feel hot in the face and he slumps into himself. I know the way he looks at you. His eyes tell the truth. Lyre's blush becomes more and more visible as he continues. Promise me something. What? Don't let them do it again. Lyre stands up straight and looks him in the eyes. I won't, Eden. Good. If there's anything else I can do to help, let me know. I'm still your friend, no matter how much you distance yourself from everyone. Lyre walks over to the doorway and Eden lifts the tarp to the side. He lifts the back of his head and looks up at Eden with a concerned and embarrassed gaze. Thank you, Eden. I'm sorry. No worries. They step outside into the chilly air, and Eden basks in it, trying to cool off. This visit was very productive. A bit too productive in some areas. I'm honestly glad I was able to help. Hopefully, everything gets resolved. I can only hope at this point. I should really stop being a stranger, though. I'll come visit you again soon if things go well. Lyre takes a few steps toward the alley while looking at Eden. Before he can go any further, he crashes into something which causes him to stumble back slightly. Watch your step, Captain. As Lyre regains his footing, he notices that Bjorn has slipped the satchel off his person and is now opening the flap. When he looks back up, with little subtlety he had, his eyes is now completely gone. I knew it. Sneaking off with pieces of evidence as if you own a blatant investigation. Lyre reaches forward, taking the satchel from Bjorn, who basically lets him have it. I was not sneaking. What are you doing lurking in the alley behind my forge, following this reckless fool? Bjorn gestures to Lyre with his large paw, not taking his eyes off of him for a moment. Lyre's face becomes flushed and he grips the satchel to his side. You're coming with me. Lyre goes to walk past him. We'll speak about this later. Before he can finish his sentence, Bjorn grabs him by the shoulders and slams him against the wall. His head hits the wall behind him, and before he can recover, there's another painful blow to his face. He then sails back toward the end of the alley, stumbling slightly. Yo, stay out of this, Eden. Bjorn had punched him directly in the nose, his fist splattered with blood. Lyre could already taste in his mouth the potent metallic flavor running across his tongue. You bastard! Have you lost your mind? I could ask the same of you, boy. You think you're completely absolved of all punishment just because you're the captain? It makes me sick. Bjorn already has his paw firmly placed on the grip of his sword. Lyre feels a rage grow inside him that he hadn't felt in a long time. He slowly raises his arm up behind him and grips the handle of his own blade. You will draw steel on me? You've been meddling with this investigation for far too long. You let your emotions get in the way of every decision you make, and it's going to bring this entire trial into chaos. That's absurd. If anything, that's what I'm trying to prevent, you brute. It's true, Uncle. Shut your trap. Eden looks like he's about to say something but stops himself. He looks over at Lyre, a worried look filling his eyes. What do you plan to do? Bjorn takes his chin lightly while glaring at Lyre. Teaching you a lesson might be good. You've been a bad dog. Honestly, I think it would be best if I just killed the Iranian bastard. Then you can go back to thinking with your brain instead of that thing between your legs, like a good captain. Hearing him say this triggers something within Lyre that he's only felt on a few occasions, the purest kind of ways. His body feels like a fire was lit inside of it, flowing through his veins and boiling his blood. He is about to. Bjorn rolls around and yells at Eden. Stay out of this, boy. I've already warned you once. Lyre takes his chance to draw his sword, the blade sliding off of the leather sheath with ease. He dances back while doing this to put some distance between him and Bjorn. Once his foot is secured, he loads the sword in front of his body and assumes a plow guard. If there's going to be a fight, he's going to defend himself. And since it's Bjorn, there's going to be a fight. Bjorn has already turned his gaze back to Lyre and smirks a sinister grin. It's like you're the one drawing steel. I'll go get help. Eden runs off in the direction of the castle. You better hurt me with that pretty thing. I only mean to defend myself. Bjorn reaches behind his shoulder and drags the heavy sword off his back. The blade glistens in the light and is twice the size of Lyre's own sword. You'll come with me, one way or another. I'd like to see that happen. You won't be dealing out your own sick idea of justice this time. Bjorn rushes forward, sword raised and ready to be brought down upon him. Lyre steadies himself and prepares for the hit. Bjorn brings the heavy hunk of metal down upon Lyre's own blade, but he swiftly parries it and dodges to the side. The blade slams into the ground with a mighty clang, sparkling against the bricks. Lyre's Vikite sword rings throughout the air as he swings it back around, away from Bjorn. You know, you never commanded respect. You weren't fit to be captain. He now points his blade in Bjorn's direction, defending himself against the next blow. I never wanted your respect. I never needed it. I'm demanding your loyalty. Let's say your loyalty will also this kingdom. Bjorn scowls at him, pacing around the wolf with a calm yet savage look in his eyes. Loyalty. What good has it done you? You've been a slave to loyalty your whole life. A small crowd has started to form just outside of the alley. Nobody dares to get closer, though. Bjorn takes this chance to swing at Lyre again. This time Lyre brings the sword in front of him, grabbing the end of it with his gloved paw and bracing it against the flat of his blade. Bjorn's sword clashes against Lyre's, sending sparks all over the latter, throwing him slightly off balance before sending his weight back into the blade and throwing Bjorn's sword to the side of him. Bjorn staggers back and grips his weapon tighter. King Raynor's loyal dog, always ready to do whatever his master asks of him. Lyre keeps a deep, hot feeling swelling inside him. The feeling grows stronger with each second that passes. He quickly rushes forward, throwing a flurry of blows at the bear, which he barely manages to block. To an outsider, he's a blue and white blur, thrashing at his opponent with precise strikes. Bjorn stumbles and almost falls to his knees before swinging his blade horizontally, forcing Lyre to back off. Through panting breaths, he mocks him again. Yes, you were loyal, but your loyalty ended where the benefits stopped. Lyre rushes forward and swings his sword against Bjorn's with a heavy clasp. Sparks fly throughout the air as their blades drag across each other with a heavy squeaking noise. You don't know what you're talking about. Trust me, I do. You see, my loyalty ended in a similar way. Each of them possessing their swords at different angles, one opponent trying to get the advantage over the other. When Sir Runar died, and you were named his successor, I knew this kingdom was going to shit. So I started pulling stunts on my own, and they called me undisciplined for it. Lyre brings his leg up and kicks into Bjorn as hard as he can, forcing him back. You're a traitorous little bastard. I'll have that human strung up if it's the last thing I do. And you're going to watch. Hearing this causes Lyre to enter a rage like he's never felt before. Savage and wild, but calm and collected, all at the same time. He needs to completely visualize his objective. Killing him isn't his goal here. He has to subdue him somehow. wrestling him into a tough position is the only way to ensure no blood is spilled on his part. However, it presents a problem. Lyre is a superior duelist by far, but if past training has shown anything beyond simply the bare grappler. Switching to this form of fighting gives Bjorn an advantage, but it's the best way to show he was acting in self-defense. He has a chance. Lyre lets out a low growl before lunging at Bjorn, tackling him to the ground. At this moment, he truly looks like a wild animal as he tosses Bjorn's sword to the side with a single swing of his own. The blade clatters to the ground and Lyre mounts the bear, digging his paws into his wrist with all his strength, pinning him down. He leans in, pressing harder onto Bjorn's wrist, baring his teeth. Like hell you will. All 3 kingdoms will be in the ground before I let you do that. Bjorn manages to wrench one of his arms out from underneath Lyre's paws, but Lyre already anticipated this. He quickly kicks his paws from the ground and twists around, still holding on to one of Bjorn's arms. The bear reaches around to grab onto one of Lyre's legs, but it's already too late. Lyre has him locked in a vicious arm bar. He locks his legs around Bjorn's arm as the soldier pulls the appendage as hard as he can. If you think I'll let you get away with this, you're wrong. Audible grunts can be heard from the large bear, but Lyre doesn't let up. He needs to figure out his next move quickly. Before he can execute anything, Bjorn is already back on the offensive. The bear slowly lifts his leg around to the side of Lyre and positions himself under the wolf's foot. It's a blessing we were both taught by the same man. He taught me everything I need to know to take you down. Before Bjorn can escape the grip, Lyre doubles down and pins the bear's head to the ground harder while tightening his hold on Bjorn's arm. Yield! What feels like a split second, Lyre's body is thrown back to the ground as Bjorn twists around and mounts Lyre. Through it all, Lyre's legs are still locked around the bear's body, but they've been forced down to wrap it around Bjorn's waist. Lyre's armor scrapes against the ground as his cape whips as he's slid back toward the wall behind him. The bear looks down at him with a sick and amused expression. I don't. Bjorn then lays a heavy punch into Lyre's face. This is then followed by several more blows. Lyre manages to block a few of them, but after a while it becomes harder. Every blow elicits a low growl from the bear. With each punch, the noises about him become more and more muffled. Then they stop. Thick blood feels like it's drowning the insides of his mouth as he sits there panting. Bjorn gets off of him and he's free to catch his breath. His eyes feel swollen and he can't see out of them. He can still hear, but it's slowly fading away. I told you, you're coming with. The last thing his ears pick up is a large bear coughing and wheezing. He's breathing heavily and there's the sound of footsteps rustling to both of them. The last thing he feels is something heavy falling on top of him. This knocks the wind out of him and he slowly loses consciousness. Cold snowflakes land on the tip of his almost numb nose. The last thing he thinks is whether Richard is going to be safe. Is it going to stop here? So I always figured that bear had something against Lyre. And he seems to be more supportive of King Adris than King Raynor. Apparently he thinks that King Raynor is being too merciful, while he very much prefers King Idris, due to the fact that King Idris so far seems to be more cold and serious. Well, not serious, but cold. He's more cold in the way he rules and stern and less forgiving than his father was. And Bjorn seems to like that approach better. And it's clear that it seems like he always gave hints before, but he made even more clear now that he does not prefer Lyre to be the captain of the Royal Guard. And he very much wants to kill Richter. So, So, Bjorn certainly has been an issue. He's only going to be he's only going to be a bigger issue going forward, since he supports King Idris very much. In that talk, Liz gave to Liao, the talk she gave to Liao. As he is right, there will be a crossroads soon in which Liao will have to make. It's something I thought for a while myself, since Richter was first put behind bars. And Liao will have to decide whether to stay loyal to Richter or to sever ties with him. Because what if he is found guilty and sentenced to death? What will he do then? Will he continue to? What he'll do then? At that point, if they decide to sentence Richter to death, then what can Liao do from there? On one hand, if he decides to stay loyal to Lyre, then he will have no choice but to forsake Richter. You have to forsake Richter and just sever ties with him and stay loyal to his kingdom. However, he might have to betray his kingdom and help Richter somehow escape. Those are the two options that are going to happen. At least that's what I believe. And Eden was very helpful in describing the dagger. Turns out it's from Dries, so could Kadaj have something to do with the murder? Well, Liz certainly does not particularly, I wouldn't say she doesn't like him, but she does not trust him quite as much as she does Richter. And she doesn't trust Richter either. She made that clear to Richter when she talked to him in the cell, but she certainly sees something different to Richter as opposed to Kadaz. Kadaz is like a trained ambassador, while Richter is more authentic. And the way he told off everybody during the ball, the way he the way he told off all those people in the ball, all those people who are part of the nobility, their arrogant, snobby attitudes, dismissing everybody. Liz was very much impressed with Winter, and she really liked that about Winter. Just sticking it straight to these nobles like that. So we'll continue with chapter 10 next time, and we'll be going back to Adris's perspective. So we get to see more of Adris and his mind, his state of mind, and all this, and how he's going to govern the kingdom. I think us going to Adris' perspective will tell exactly how he's feeling, and it will also tell the possibility of what Winter's future could be. If Adris is full of hatred, then I'm not optimistic for Winter's chances. But if he is more, if he keeps his rage and hate in check and acts more like a king, then maybe Winter has a chance. At least like letting calmer heads prevail here. So that's all I have to say for now. Thank y'all very, very much for watching. Goodbye.